Good morning and welcome to the Georgia Gang on this Sunday, June 14th. Republicans are picking their choices for U.S. Senate and governor in Tuesday's runoff. Also, the World Cup is here and Atlanta is ready to show the world what it's got. Also, a look at other critical races as lawmakers head into a special session Wednesday. Melita's here. Let me get this straight. Brian is in for Phil. Lee May is back for Theron, and Martha's back. So welcome, everybody. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Georgia Republicans have some big decisions to make on Tuesday. In the U.S. Senate race, Congressman Mike Collins and political newcomer Derek Dooley are headed into a runoff to decide who takes on Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff in November. Collins is running as a MAGA firebrand, while Dooley, with Governor Brian Kemp at his side, is betting that appealing to crossover voters is the path to victory. So, Martha, to you first this week, who do you feel has the momentum heading into Tuesday?
Yeah, I think that right now the latest polling I saw looks at pretty neck and neck from Insider Advantage. So I think that does reflect what I've seen. I think that Mike Collins, this is Mike Collins' to lose. I think that he's got the better organization. He's got, 159 counties he's organized in. But I think the momentum is with Derek Dooley. And if I had to call it right now, I would think that he would win.
Melita, who do Democrats want to face in November?
Well, I think either candidate, they share the same pro-Trump, pro-tariff types of rhetoric, and so Ossoff has a great chance against either of them in November.
All right, Brian, Collins has been in Congress. Dooley is campaigning as an outsider, so how does this play out?
Well, it could be a big night for outsiders on Tuesday if he pulls this off. We have seen a mishmash of polling in the Senate race. It's a little different than in the governor's race, where we're consistently seeing a growing lead for Rick Jackson there going into Election Day on Tuesday. I have seen conflicting numbers in this race. I have seen what Martha is talking about that show Derek Dooley closing really hard and narrowing that gap. It makes some sense, Laurie. Derek Dooley is on the air here on Fox 5 and everywhere else, and Mike Collins is not. And in these last weeks, that can make a huge difference in grabbing some of those voters who don't know the candidates that well. I've also seen polling, though, that shows Collins continuing to maintain a double-digit lead. I do not know where the truth is, but I do agree with Martha that Derek Dooley is closing hard, and his affiliation with Governor Kemp has certainly helped lift up this campaign and get him, very close to the finish line in a positive spot.
Lee, there is a lot on the line for Governor Kemp as well.
Yeah, well, I think if Dooley is successful, he owes it all to Governor Kemp. I think Kemp really taking this particular race and saying this is mine, that I'm going to really push across the finish line, is really important. I look at his presidential ambitions and seeing if he is successful in helping Dooley win this Senate seat. I think that really bodes well for his ambitions, whether they're public or not, for his kind of power here in Georgia.
Just real quickly, and Melita, I love you, but it is the Democratic talking point to tie every Republican to say they just want to be like Trump. And that's really very different in this particular race, because you do have this kind of, you've got Brian Kemp, who is behind Derek Dooley and has been successful in being his own man, and Derek Dooley's done a contract, and he's kind of got a different approach about tariffs and other things. And you don't see the president dabbling in the Senate race. And the governor's race, the governor stayed out of, and then you have Trump endorsing Burt Jones. So I don't think that these candidates are just all MAGA candidates. They're not, and you're going to see that reflected in the votes.
All right, we'll move on to the governor's race. The Republican race for governor is just as tight and just as closely watched. To say it's heated would be an understatement. Now, the wild card here is where the roughly 27% of voters who back Carr and Brad Raffensperger, Chris Carr, of course, will land. Martha, to you first. And I want to be fair here to Burt Jones, because you've endorsed Rick Jackson. Brian is part of the campaign for Rick Jackson. But, Burt Jones had another tele-rally with President Trump, and he's been wearing that loud and proud.
No, I think that Burt Jones has certainly got the tougher position because we know from data that if you're in first place and you're under 45%, you generally don't win a runoff. I mean, that's just the way the numbers usually work out, that the people who would have voted for you would have voted in the first cycle. That doesn't always happen because, you know, we can see how things turn out. My situation was different. I was that second place person and I didn't win. So sometimes, you know, I'm the exception that proves the rule. Okay, I'll go with that. But I do think it's an interesting race because what you're seeing is Burt Jones is still touting the Trump endorsement because that's the strongest thing that he's got. Rick Jackson has gone to a more softer closing message for a lot of reasons, and that shows that I think he's a little more confident about where he is. Lee.
Well, I think this is a case where they're trying to out-MAGA one another. You know, whether you have an endorsement or not, they're tying themselves directly to Donald Trump and seeing where the end is going to be. I just find it ironic that those closing commercials of Rick Jackson, he has his grandchildren and he's smiling and all of that, but that smile even seems a little bit forced, in a sense. But we'll see at the end of the day which one is going to win the day.
Brian?
The rally for Burt Jones from President Trump certainly does play on Burt's strengths. I am a communications consultant for the Jackson campaign, but look, I've said all along the Trump endorsement is hugely important in Republican primaries for undecided voters, for voters who that's the one data point that they have. It's hugely important, and so congratulations to Burt Jones on that and to getting Trump to do it over and over and over again. He's done several of these tele-rallies for Burt Jones. The issue for Burt Jones in the strategic sense is voters already know about the Trump endorsement. We know in polling that if you show up to vote in a Republican primary, you already have been told and have known for some time that Burt Jones was endorsed by President Trump. So that's baked into the numbers that we're seeing, Lori. So when we see this signal, by the way, is Governor Kemp's pollster. When you see their poll showing Rick up by 12, that is a 12% margin of people who already know that President Trump has endorsed Burt Jones. And one thing Rick Jackson says over and over again is, I'm going to be President Trump's favorite governor. He has never used the endorsement of Burt to draw a contrast with Trump. He has said, I'm going to take the same business approach to state government as he has on the federal level. So I think on Wednesday, there's going to be a big hug.
All right, we'll see. Melita, just to give us a glimpse of how close this race could be, the ATC reports that in Habersham County, the primary was a perfect dead heat. Jones and Jackson each received exactly 2,640 votes, and that's remarkable. And I always say, if you don't think that your votes count, here's the proof.
Well, that's very true, and people need to remember that if they did not early vote, they should just show up early Tuesday and make sure their vote counts, because there are important races on both sides of the ballot that need to be decided, and it will give both sides of the ticket, Republican or Democrat, their best fighting chance for the fall.
Well, and if you didn't vote in the primary, you can vote in the runoff as long as you're registered, and I always remind people of that.
Good reminder.
Well, and if you voted in the primary, you have to vote in the same runoff.
That's right.
Right. Well, on the Democratic side, real quickly, while Republicans are still fighting it out, back to you, Melita. Keisha Lance Bottoms isn't waiting. The Democratic nominee for governor is already airing new ads statewide targeting the infighting between Jones and Jackson. She's got a head start, and she's using it.
She is, and I want to remind our viewers that Keisha Lance Bottoms was out there before it was the issue of the gas tax suspension was added to the legislative agenda for the upcoming special session. She was already encouraging the governor to extend that exemption. She's been out there on a pause for data center construction so that the impact of those centers can be evaluated. So she's out there on some important issues and not just dilly-dallying and waiting to see who she's running against. She's out there giving what her positions are. And she's making a positive impression.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Keisha Lance Bottoms is on the sidelines rooting, saying fight, 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 for this race, because she is using this time for fundraising, for coalescing all of the party, together with getting other candidates on board as well, and really building a general election campaign that really goes after independents, moderates, and things as well.
Well, and I can speak to the fact that she is bringing people who had supported other candidates over to her side and making very positive impressions on at least the women I know who were on a call with her earlier this week.
Brian, final word here.
Look, Keisha Lance Bottoms has not been a strong fundraiser throughout her career. When she was going into her re-elect year as mayor, which she ended up not doing, she had less than $100,000 in the bank at that juncture. That is not somebody who wants to do fundraising. She was in the lead during that primary from start to finish. She was always in the pole position and could not translate that into a massive fundraising advantage over the rest of the field. If she's going to be serious, she's got to get a lot better at it, and she's got to dedicate her time to it. And I would tell all of her potential California donors that she has taken a big anti-tech stand.
All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Still ahead, the World Cup has officially come to Atlanta. We'll discuss what the city has lined up for fans and what a ticket may cost you.
Question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Atlanta is open for business and for soccer or football, right? The FIFA Fan Festival kicked off Thursday at Centennial Olympic Park with free admission for registered fans running through the tournament. Underground Atlanta is also getting in on the action, transforming Upper Alabama Street into a World Cup fan zone to welcome the international crowds. Atlanta Stadium, what we still know as Mercedes-Benz, is hosting 8 matches. Lee, Atlanta has been working toward this moment for years. How did we clean up?
Look, it is very similar to the 1996 Olympics. I was, 20 years old then, and I literally saw the city transform, and more importantly, the impact that it had for years to come, years of impact that is still benefiting us here today. And so that's really my prayer and my goal, and all the partying, yes, with Big Boy and CeeLo Green and Summer Walker, all these are my, the people I listen to. With all of that, my prayer is really, it introduces a group of kids really from the urban city to a sport that is the most possible, most attractive sport in the world, to this sport, while also really transforming this city for the good for years to come.
Yeah, Brian, lots of excitement downtown.
Yeah, and look, I'm a little disappointed that some of the news has been negative, that the reaction to this hasn't been what we had hoped, that we aren't seeing all the hotel rooms full, we aren't seeing Airbnbs going nuts on the market, and I don't know why that is. I do think maybe some people got a little scared off by the potential price tags of all of this, and we are seeing that our prices for tickets are a barrier to entry for a lot of folks. But I'm with Lee. I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a raving success. Atlanta is a global sports destination, and groups like the Atlanta Sports Council and the Metro Chamber have been a big part of building this brand, working with the Blank organization and with the Braves and with the Hawks. They have really built something special in this city, and we have a premier destination at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So come, world, and then come back with your dollars.
The fan festivals are great, but as Brian mentioned, let's talk ticket prices. Is the city doing enough to make sure that everyday Atlantans feel included? According to the AJC, Atlanta Stadium ticket prices are lower, as Brian had mentioned, than in some other host cities, but prices have been climbing as the tournament gets underway. Meanwhile, some Atlanta soccer fans are raising questions after New York City Mayor Zoran Mandani secured discounted FIFA tickets for low-income residents in his city, something Mayor Andre Dickens has not done here. And advocates are now pushing the city to follow New York's lead, Melita.
Well, that was probably a negotiation that happened very early on. At this point, there's not a lot of room for something like that, but I think it was very smart of the New York mayor to do that, and lesson learned, I'm sure, for Mayor Dickens for any other big extravaganza in the future.
Yeah, Martha.
Well, and I think it was actually Mayor Adams that negotiated that deal, so it was that he just has got to be the beneficiary. My biggest problem is will those 1,000 tickets go to, people that are going to protest in the stands as opposed to actual people that would deserve to get those tickets? He says it's a lottery, but I don't know.
Well, let's talk about MARTA too, because we've talked about MARTA on the show in previous weeks about how it's preparing for the World Cup. The chairman of the MARTA board says MARTA is safe. We've seen some violent incidents the past month. Those trains, those really nice high-powered trains, are not ready yet. So, Lee, what do you think about MARTA's position here? And it is a global stage.
Well, and MARTA will be the face of Atlanta because of the amount of people that will be riding the trains and the buses as well. I feel good about about the public safety aspect of it, because it's not just MARTA Police, it's the city of Atlanta, it's DeKalb County, it's Gwinnett County, it's all of the law enforcement agencies coming together to really support safety all across the jurisdiction, especially for MARTA as well. So I feel good about it. I feel like there will be a good face put forward for the world to see as well, and then people will want to come back. I do believe that.
And MARTA has mentioned that they are using officers from other jurisdictions. Brian, what about the security, the beefed up presence there?
I think one thing that's going to help is if we have massive crowds, I think you're much less likely to see the stabbing incident like we saw most recently, the horrifying murder of that great grandmother, when you have teeming masses. And I do think that numbers bring safety, and I think that's going to be huge here. What I hope is that we don't have any of the hooliganism like we've been seeing in New York City this week when the Knicks have had these big games. That is the danger. We may have police who need to be prepared for, sort of organic crowd violence if there's a lot of drunkenness or really high people, or just people celebrating soccer in a way that we don't normally celebrate at games in the South.
Melita?
Well, that celebrating soccer in ways that we don't normally celebrate is very close to home with this World Cup thing. I happened to be in London during the last World Cup, and the street surges of enthusiasm over game outcomes are incredible, and it's not like anything we are accustomed to in America. I mean, my friends and I were just holding on to each other for dear life in the crowd to be able to not lose each other. But I want to say something about MARTA, because my daughter and her husband chose to live near the Kirkwood Inman Park MARTA station. That family is on MARTA constantly, several times a week. My granddaughters go to their private school on MARTA, and they feel very safe on MARTA. And so I'll just say that as a grandmother who knows that my grandchildren travel on MARTA.
All right. Well, Melita or Martha, let me go to you. With the new Arthur M. Blank Training Center in Fayette County, they're definitely getting their share of attention down there. DeKalb is holding events. So this isn't just about downtown Atlanta, but other jurisdictions will also benefit from the World Cup.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, we just celebrated in Gainesville the 30th anniversary of the Lake Lanier rowing venue, which is still being used for training. It's the only Olympic site from 1996 that's still being used for what it was built for. It's been recently redone, and we have teams from all over the world still coming to train there every single year. So there is that impact in these outside communities where they embrace it and make it a part of everything they do. So I'm excited about that, because look, I grew up, I call myself a girl that grew up in Atlanta, but I was in Decatur. I was in kind of the suburbs, and when you like it when it comes out to there too.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Coming up, the runoff season doesn't end at the top of the ticket. There are heated down ballot races that could reshape power in Georgia as state lawmakers get ready for a special session.
Discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page, and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Republicans and Democrats are also picking their choices for lieutenant governor on Tuesday. On the Republican side, State Senator Greg Dolezal is doubling down on MAGA red meat to take on former State Senator John F. Kennedy, who is running on his legislative experience. Martha Dolezal is running ads with his kids, talking about the fact that he's running against a guy named John F. Kennedy. He knows what he's up against.
Yeah, he knows what he's up against. I mean, we have a senator also named I think he's John F. Kennedy, the one from Louisiana. So, yeah, he's inserting some humor there. I think, it's one of those things. I think that Kennedy is stronger outside of Atlanta. Dolezal has some strength in Atlanta, so I don't know how that one's going to turn out. It'll be interesting to watch. And I think the same issue with the Democrat one. They're not as well known. These two candidates aren't as well known, and so I think there's a lot of confusion about who to vote for.
Let's stay on the Republicans for a second. Brian,
yes.
Is this a referendum on how Trumpy you have to be to win statewide in Georgia right now?
I do think the result of this race will be particularly telling as far as that goes, because one thing that is noted about what Martha just said there about Kennedy doing better in the rural areas and Dolezal more in Metro Atlanta, those reflect where they are from. But the MAGA messaging that you're seeing from Dolezal is more of a rural Georgia type, winning message. And Dolezal has been very edgy throughout this campaign. Like, he's the one who's gone to that point and tried to kind of be a little controversial to get attention, and it has worked. It's been a successful strategy for him. Kennedy is somebody who carried the tort reform bill in Georgia last year, somebody very much supported by the business community. And so you've got this pro-business environment candidate with Kennedy, and then a candidate who's running a much more populist campaign and willing to sort of poke an eye in the face of big business from time to time. So yes, I do think that this is a test, a bellwether of where these voters are going on those messages.
Well, on the Democratic side, it's State Senator Josh McLaurin and former State Senator Nabila Parks battling it out. Melita, how is this race shaping up?
Well, I think it's highly competitive, but what Brian is calling edgy is downright anti-Islam and racist behavior on Dozal's ad side. But I think McLaurin was out and about and campaigning for months and months and months before Ms. Parks decided to switch from insurance commissioner to lieutenant governor. And I think you see on McLaurin's side, most of his fellow senators and many state representatives have endorsed him, and she's running a different kind of campaign. So it will be interesting to watch the results.
Lee?
Yeah, I see you're seeing the difference between approaches. You see McLaurin that says, I'm going to take a more institutional, pragmatic approach. I'm going to work with the majority side as well. I see Parks is saying, no, I'm going to be a fighter. I'm going to fight the MAGA agenda. I'm going to fight. And I think that's what you're seeing really across the board. In terms of these primaries. What is your approach? Are you going to be completely MAGA? Are you going to be pragmatic? Are you going to be completely a fighter? Or are you going to work along the line? And I just think that's a question that all Americans, as most importantly Georgians, have to really answer for themselves.
Well, Tuesday is the runoff, and then lawmakers will be back in Atlanta for a special session on redistricting and the use of QR codes on Georgia's ballots. Martha, what can we expect during the session? How controversial is it going to get?
Oh, I wish I knew. I mean, it is going to be very controversial because I think there's a lot of, controversy about even how the agenda is going to roll out and what's going to be on it. There was, are the maps out? Are they not? What are we going to be doing? Will we do the QR code? Will we change other things? I think there's a lot of confusion, and then there's so many people running for things. Who's going to show up for this? I mean, I think they will all show up, but will people that lost their races not show up? Who knows?
Melita?
Well, we haven't seen the maps, and there's a lot of controversy about what those maps will or won't do. And I think Republicans risk overreaching by trying to take away safe Democratic seats for more Republican seats. They risk turning out voters in November in higher numbers on the Democratic side. So there's a weighing option that the Republicans have to do. How angry do we want to make disenfranchised black or minority voters by taking away their districts?
Brian, I got about 10 seconds.
There's a lot of disagreement between legislators and Governor Kemp. There was not an agreement going into this on what would be in the call. We are going to see those disagreements play out over the next week.
All right, we'll leave it there. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
The week's winners and losers.
All right, Martha, you had a big announcement this week.
I did. Thank you so much for giving me a moment here. I am stepping down from daily radio as of June the 26th. I'm going to take about a month off, and then I'm going to be the senior political analyst for Jacobs Media Corporation, and I'll be doing special interviews. I'll show up on election night. I'll do those kinds of things, but I won't be tied down from 4:30 a.m. till noon anymore every day. So I'm very excited about that. And I want to say my winners this week, thank you for all the people that reached out, mostly who liked me, a few that didn't, but you know how that goes when you're in the public eye. But thank you so much. Everywhere I've gone, people have wanted to shake my hand and tell me where things are going, and so thank you so much for that.
And you're not leaving the Georgia Gang.
I'm not leaving the Georgia Gang. I will be
us.
Here for the Georgia Gang, maybe a little bit of Red Clay Rewind every now and then, so I'm going to be doing great things. And so I just want to thank everybody for the time, and I've loved my career. I really have. It has been fun, but it's time for a different take.
And it's not over yet.
It's not over yet. No.
All right, Lee.
Congratulations,
Yes.
by the way. I'm excited for you. My winner for this week are all of the kids. I kind of alluded to this before with FIFA here and all of the events, all of the opportunities to be exposed to new environments, new cultures, and things like that. I'm going to encourage parents all around Metro Atlanta and Georgia to take advantage. Bring your kids out, if you have kids, to experience the shows, the concerts, the watch parties, all of that. Bring your kids and let them just really cherish all of that's going on this
It's an exciting
for
time.
these next 5 weeks.
Absolutely an exciting time. Brian.
Well, y'all know I work in politics, and I'm a political nerd. It is what I eat, drink, and breathe, and this is Disney World time for people
Your
like
Super Bowl.
me. This, you got see my sticker here?
Yeah.
This
Other side.
wrong side. Right.
Should've been on the left side.
Yes. I'm a DeKalb County voter, and I want to thank the Briarwood Recreation Center staff. They were so friendly, and as I was putting my ballot in, she was like, wait for it to click, wait for it to click. I did, and she goes, I watch you every Sunday. So thank you to everybody at the Briarwood, and I was like, well, then I guess you know who I'm voting for. So and my winner here is every Republican primary voter and Democrat primary voter, because on Tuesday,
Yes.
the mail and the texts and the ads come to an end, at least for a few months. So happy for all of you. And if you have not voted yet, your franchise is one of the most precious things in the world, and shame on you if you don't go exercise it.
Absolutely. Melita.
Well, I first want to acknowledge the loss of former Democratic Majority Leader Larry Walker of Perry. He served as Majority Leader from '86 to 2004 with great distinction, and now his son is a Republican pro tem. It's interesting to see in that family the shift of rural Georgia from Democrat to Republican times. And then I also want to make my winner Savannah's 104-year-old Avery Lowe Jr. He's a World War II veteran who stormed the beaches, Utah Beach, during the days right after D-Day, and we celebrated D-Day's anniversary last weekend. And so as we go to vote, we need to remember what all of those in the greatest generation fought for, and we need to make preserving democracy at the forefront of our thought process.
Absolutely. We'll leave it there, folks. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.